My body was shaking and my hands had frozen into a lobster claw. The What's Eating You podcast is a series of mental health topics that are designed to make you think, learn, educate, and validate. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the What is Eating You podcast. I'm here to talk about my breathwork experience in Bali. And if you haven't been following along on social media, I was in Bali for the past 10 days. So I am so ready to bring you some amazing new content that is both going to reflect on my experience and what I took away from this whole trip. Now, the purpose of going to Bali is that I was invited to speak at the National Women's Fitness Academy. Basically, this is an academy that teaches women how to become personal trainers. They also teach nutrition and how to be a master trainer. I connected with them a few years ago when they asked me to do some content for their online courses, and I loved how diverse and inclusive they were and what they were all about, and felt that we really aligned. This was incredible. I really did not know what to expect. On this retreat, I went not knowing any person. I went alone and I came back with friends for life. It's incredible how 10 days out of your comfort zone can completely transform the way you think, feel, and relate to others. There were about 30 women on this trip, a combination of both instructors and students and admin staff. One of the activities I joined in on was a breathwork class. If you're not aware of breathwork, basically it's a practice that involves conscious control and manipulation of breathing patterns to achieve specific mental, emotional, or physical benefits. And there are various techniques, but they all share in common the goal of using the breath to influence the body and mind. Now, I have done breathwork before. And we've all done some sort of breath work, whether it's deep diaphragmatic breathing, box breathing, some sort of meditation. There are different levels of intensity when it comes to breath work. Now, the times I've done it before is when I was in Thailand. So when I was in Thailand, I did a very intense, incredible transformational retreat called Phuket Cleanse. Highly recommend it if you're thinking about it. And we did this activity called fire and ice. And basically, we first laid on the grass and we were coached to work on our breathing. And this breathing increased in intensity and frequency. And it felt really hard. It felt really challenging. And you just had to keep going, push through it. It really is a mental game because it often feels like you're going to stop breathing or you're going to have a panic attack. And if you're able to push through that discomfort, there can be a big awakening on the other side. That experience was very intense. And let's just say there's 4 levels of difficulty or intensity with breathing. That was level 4, and I'll go through the different levels. We actually then went into a steam room and we hummed and we breathed to the point of feeling as if you were burning. I remember my bottom on the seat in the steam room was burning. My nostrils were on fire. It was so intense. And there were people who tried to get up and walk away. And the instructor was like, no, push through it. You've got this. And there was people of all different ages, shapes, sizes. And after the sauna, this was in Thailand, not Bali. This was a few years ago, 2019. We then jumped into the ice bath. Now, this was my first ever experience with ice baths. And if you know, I love ice baths. I think they're incredible for your mental stamina, for your mental health, all different things. And this ice bath was probably -2 degrees is what I was told. There's actually ice cubes, gigantic slabs of ice in there. This was the real deal. And at the time, this was the most challenging thing I had ever done in my life. My body was screaming. It wanted to get out, but you have to dip your shoulders under and sit there. And all I could do was breathe. And I said to myself, Steph, your only option is to breathe or struggle. And I breathed and I followed the coach, and the girls next to me were crying and they were trying to get out, and he was pushing them down saying, push through this. You've got this. You've got this. You've got this. And It really just goes to show how hard this is. But when you tell yourself that getting out right now is not an option and all you've got to do is breathe, you can get through it. So Thailand was very, very intense. That was Wim Hof type of breathing. If you don't know who Wim Hof is, look him up. They call him the Iceman. He's known for holding his breath for incredibly long amounts of time in severely cold environments. I'm talking under the ice. He swims under the ice and he has developed cold exposure with meditation to improve physical and mental resilience. So I was trained in the Wim Hof method in Thailand. So going into the breathwork in Bali, I really did not know what to expect. I knew it was going to be tough and I knew it was potentially going to be challenging, but I went in with an open mind and I was ready. Okay, so what is breathwork? As mentioned, it's conscious control over your breathing patterns. Now, there's different aims of it. Basically, breathwork can reduce stress, it can promote relaxation, it can improve your focus and enhance your overall well-being. There's 4 levels. Level 1 is diaphragmatic breathing. So this is focusing on deep belly breathing to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, inducing relaxation. So we can all do this now. So everyone, grab a hand and pop it on your belly. Now, as you look down and you inhale, I want you to push your belly out on the inhale as if you're inflating a balloon. So inhale and push your belly out. And exhale and let your belly fall. And again, inhale and push your belly out. And exhale and let your belly fall. 2 more times. Inhale and push your belly out. Exhale and let your belly fall. Inhale and expand. Exhale and release. Now you should be feeling a little bit more calm, maybe a little bit lightheaded. Now, that type of breathing is great if you experience anxiety. And I teach you how to regulate your nervous system in my course, Unchain Your Brain, using this type of breath work. What that breathing does is it actually massages the amygdala, the part of your brain that instigates fight or flight in the first place. And when it does that, that re-engages your frontal lobe, which is your thinking brain. Because when you're anxious and when you're in fight or flight, your thinking brain actually goes offline, and we need to use breathing to bring it back online. The second level of breathing is pranayama, derived from yoga. This involves controlled breath retention and alternate nostril breathing to balance energy flows. I've done this a couple of times in a yoga class, but if you've done yoga before, they may focus on the breathing throughout the class or at the end and teach you how to alternate your breathing from nostril to nostril. Of course, this is going to feel more challenging in a warm yoga class or a Bikram yoga class. Now, the third type of breath is called holotropic breath work. This is rapid and deep breathing to access altered states of consciousness and facilitate emotional release. So a lot of people in the breathwork class in Bali were crying. They had moments of release, moments of realization, because when you're breathing holotropically, this is the one we did in Bali, you are alternately basically changing the pH level in your blood. And I'll go in more detail about this. But the theory is by changing your breath, you can access different parts of your brain known as your subconscious. And this is where emotional stuff or baggage can often be stored up that the conscious mind does not access. And then the last level is the Wim Hof method. And this is what I did in Bali. And this is combining your breath control with cold exposure and meditation to improve your physical and mental resilience. So during breath work, what you can expect is different feelings. So as you do your breath and you get faster and faster, you can get tingling sensations, and it can be a little bit confronting. But what I loved about the class in Bali, there was about 6 or 7 of us, and it was in a regular room, is that the teacher actually explained at the start of the class what you can expect to happen. And she said it's normal if you get lobster claws or your hands sort of seize up. It's normal if you get tingling. It's normal if you get a sense of euphoria. Whereas when I did this in Bali, I was younger, and in Thailand, when I did the Wim Hof one in Thailand, I didn't know what was normal. So I was a little bit afraid. And you hear people of, getting these experiences and you're like, oh, did I do it right? Did I do it wrong? I'm not too sure. So during this breath work, as mentioned, you might get altered perceptions, tingling, emotional release, and a sense of euphoria. It can also lead to an increased self-awareness and connection with the present moment. What's the science behind it? The science behind breathwork is related to autonomic nervous system. This is your nervous system which controls your involuntary bodily functions. So by altering breathing patterns, we can influence the balance between the sympathetic fight or flight and parasympathetic rest and digest systems, leading to various psychological and physiological, that's your body, effects. Now, regarding the pH levels in the blood, breathwork can affect it indirectly. When we engage in certain breathwork techniques like hyperventilation, in holotropic breathwork, which is what I did in Bali, we increase the elimination of carbon dioxide, CO2, from the body. This causes a temporary decrease in CO2 concentration in the blood, leading to respiratory alkalosis, which is an increase in blood pH. This alkalosis may contribute to some of the altered states of consciousness experienced during breathwork sessions. Breathwork can also be a valuable tool for addressing trauma and emotional release. The deep and focused breathing allows individuals to access and process suppressed emotions and memories, leading to cathartic experiences and potential healing. However, it's essential to approach breathwork with care, especially when dealing with traumatic experiences, and it is advisable to work with a trained facilitator in such cases. My experience. All right, so I did speak to the instructor after class, and what I really liked was she did go through a thorough screening process with the retreat and said, look, if anyone has PTSD or severe trauma or schizophrenia, this is probably not suitable for them, because as a psychologist, obviously you do this type of processing in sessions and some people aren't ready to go there yet. They don't have enough installation. They don't have the right stabilization. If something is triggered, like a trauma or a memory, they may not have the skills to be able to regulate their nervous system. So in psychology, we do a lot of stabilization work before we even get to the trauma. So that was on my mind a little bit, but I think everyone in the room was in a good place to do this type of work. I went in with a very open mind and I was prepared to fully surrender. Obviously, in the past, when I've done breath work, I've done collaborations with people before. I've, been there to get it on camera or document my experience. And I've often wondered, am I doing this right? Is it meant to be like this? Why does this feel so hard? Maybe I'm not breathing correctly. Oh, crud, I breathed out of my nose instead of my mouth. Whereas I said to myself, I'm fully going to surrender to this. Whether I do it right or wrong, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to think about it. And I'm just going to let myself go and see what happens. And as mentioned, Thailand was very severe, very intense, and this was different. So we began just practicing with some breath work. We began just lying down and practicing the breath. Then what she taught us was a 3-part breath where we inhale into the belly, inhale into the chest, and release through the mouth. And then it got quicker, so it sounded like this. Almost like a drum beat, and it got faster and faster and faster and faster. And as we did this, you feel this build up in your body, and I could feel my body tingling. I could feel my hands. They went like lobster claws. They seized together. They got really tight. And it was this build up, and I felt this build up, and it was almost like all these moments in my life were flashing before my eyes, and it felt so good. And the message I was getting, all I could hear was, you're on the right path. You're on the right path. Like, this is it. This is it. This is it. Keep going. It was almost like a mental build up to this awesome release. It was like building, 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 feel it, feel it, feel it, feel it. And I just let myself go with it, and I didn't analyze it. I didn't try to intellectualize what was going on. I was like, just go, just go. No one's watching. No one cares. Just go for it. Let yourself feel it. And then after we did the 3-part breathing, we built. Then we released. And you feel it. Your body is shaking. It's so intense. And then she gets you to inhale and hold your breath. I am telling you, I could have held my breath for 4 minutes. At this point in time, I'm like, I don't even need to breathe. Who needs to breathe? Breathing's overrated. I was holding my breath for so long. I was so calm. I was in this state I can't even describe. And it was amazing. It was incredible. I didn't cry. A few people in the room did have an emotional experience, some positive, some negative. But what I love was the instructor explained that every breath work is going to be different. And it is so true. In Thailand, it was really a forgiveness one. And we said this, it's called, I can't remember the name, it's Oponomiyamo or something like that. And it's a Hawaiian prayer that we were reciting, and it's about forgiveness and letting go. And I'd gone through a breakup before the retreat in Thailand, and that's what that breath work was about. This was a really positive experience for me. And it was almost like just a realization, you're on the right path, keep going. Other people reported other experiences, like a release, feeling that they'd let go of something, that they'd processed something, that they cried and didn't expect to cry. So really have an open mind if you're going to try this. Now, just a little disclaimer, people with PTSD or complex mental health conditions should really approach breathwork with caution and work with a professional. I just am really impressed with how this all worked out. I think you can go into these things and be a bit skeptical or not have an open mind, but I really, really enjoyed this, and I highly recommend breathwork for anyone who's considering to do it. Just make sure the person you do it with is qualified, and make sure you read reviews, speak to them beforehand. If you've got a mental health condition and you're not sure, just make sure it is right for you. But this experience for me in Bali was incredible. I would 100% do it again. It's not easy. It was uncomfortable, but if you can find comfort in discomfort, you are building your mental resilience, because you can then apply that skill to the outside world where things may seem hard, but they're not as hard because you've done the hard stuff. So that's my experience of my breath work. If you want to know more, let me know. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, write a review on Apple Podcasts. I love to read them, and I'm so grateful for your support. And if you are on the retreat and you're listening to this, thank you so much for being there and for meeting me and making my experience as amazing as it was. And I hope everyone on the retreat is having a great time. If you're listening to this thinking, wow, I really want to step out of my comfort zone, I really want to try it, look up different breathwork classes around you and just go for it. It all starts with a decision to try. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait for the next episode. Have the best day, and I will see you soon. Bye.